You know that feeling when you realize you've been played for 5 years? Mine started with applause I wasn't expecting. Congratulations to our new regional operations director, Tyler Kellner. For a second, I thought I'd misheard Raymond. My smile stuck on my face. Tyler? The kid who started 3 months ago? The same kid I'd been walking through vendor contracts like he was learning a foreign language. Around me, hands clapped. Chairs shifted. I forced my palms together, each clap sounding hollow. Raymond stood at the head of the conference table, grinning like he'd just solved world hunger. His voice bounced off those glass walls. Tyler brings fresh energy and vision to Ironstone Industries. He's what's coming for our company. What's coming? My career. That's what he meant. The promotion I'd been working toward through 18-hour days, canceled weekends, and every late-night email that started with "Quick favor, Sean." My name is Sean Cole. I'm 44 years old, and I've been working in heavy industrial equipment for 18 years. 5 of those years were at Ironstone Industries, managing regional operations across 4 states. I thought I knew how this business worked. I was wrong about a lot of things. Raymond kept talking. His eyes slid to me, and that smile got sharper. Let's thank Sean for preparing Tyler for this moment. My jaw clenched. 5 years of perfect performance reduced to a training exercise. The room erupted in another round of applause. I nodded once, keeping that expression locked in place. Stay professional. Don't give them anything. That's when my phone buzzed on the table. A text from Caleb lit up the screen. Did you get it, Dad? My chest went tight. Across the table, Tyler looked right at me and winked. Not a thank you. Not even a trace of humility. Just a playful flick of his eyelid like we were sharing some private joke. Except the joke was me. The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and printer toner, but all I could taste was metal, bitter and cold. I wanted to say something that would cut through Raymond's little show, but my voice stayed buried. Instead, I clapped harder, louder, because that's what you do when the world tilts. You pretend nothing broke. The room emptied with scraping chairs and hushed conversations. One by one, they filed out. Handshakes for Tyler. Pats on the back. Congratulations murmured like prayers. I stayed in my seat, fingers resting on the edge of a notepad I hadn't written a single word on. Sean, can you stick around for a moment? Raymond's voice cut through the noise, smooth as steel. I nodded, even though something heavy was settling in my gut. Tyler slipped out with a grin that belonged to someone who'd actually earned something. The door clicked shut. Silence. Raymond loosened his tie, leaning against the edge of the table like we were about to share a beer. It's nothing personal, he began, voice dripping with manufactured sympathy. Tyler represents what's next. Young energy, fresh ideas. You understand, right? What's next? There it was again, sharp as glass. I folded my hands in my lap. If I didn't, he'd see them shake. You'll still run day-to-day operations, he continued. No one knows the field like you do. That's where your strength lies. My strength. Like that was supposed to make up for getting gutted in public. Then he leaned in, lowering his voice. Think about Caleb. My head snapped up. Excuse me? Stability matters for kids, Raymond said softly, like he was offering fatherly advice instead of twisting the knife. This job keeps things steady for you and him. Walking away would be risky, wouldn't it? The air got thick, heavy with the truth he wasn't saying out loud. He thought he owned me, thought a 16-year-old boy was the chain around my neck. I swallowed hard. Is that all? Raymond smiled, the kind that never reaches the eyes. Not quite. He straightened, smoothing his tie back into place. Train Tyler well, and I'll make sure your loyalty is rewarded. Eventually. Eventually. A word as empty as every promise before it. For a moment, I imagined what would happen if I laughed. Loud and harsh, the kind of laugh that splits the air. Instead, I said nothing. Just stared at the man who'd turned 5 years of trust into a business transaction. You're a professional, Sean, he added. I know you'll do the right thing. I stood slowly, chair legs scraping against the tile. My heart was hammering hard enough that I felt it in my fingertips, but my voice stayed level. Sure, Raymond, the right thing. I walked out without looking back. My shoes clicked against the hallway like a ticking clock. Every step, the same thought burned hotter and louder. He thinks I'm trapped. Back in my office, I dropped into my chair and stared at the glow of my computer screen. Numbers filled the spreadsheet in neat, perfect columns. My world for the past 5 years. A world I'd built on Raymond's promises. Your management material, Sean. The first time he said it, his voice was warm, almost paternal. March 2019, in that same conference room, sunlight streaming across the table. I remember how hope swelled in my chest, how my fingers tightened around the leather portfolio I'd brought to the meeting. We reward loyalty here, he'd added. Big growth ahead for the right people. I believed him. Every word. Back then, Caleb was barely 12, still leaving sticky notes on my laptop that said, "Love you, Dad." I told myself all the late nights were temporary, that the hours I poured into Ironstone were an investment in both our lives. But those temporary nights stretched into years. I still remember one in particular, the glow of my desk lamp at 11:30 p.m., empty coffee mug leaving rings on quarterly reports. My phone buzzed with a photo from my brother, Caleb grinning on stage in his football uniform holding up a trophy. I'd promised him I'd be there for that game. Instead, I was buried in Raymond's email titled "Urgent, Need Numbers Tonight." I typed until my wrists ached, whispering apologies to an empty room. Another memory hit harder. Caleb's 15th birthday. I was standing in a client's lobby 200 miles away when my phone buzzed. A text from Raymond. "Patience pays off, Sean." It landed just as my brother sent a video of Caleb blowing out candles without me there. The timing was perfect, like a cruel joke. So I stayed patient. I stayed late. I stayed loyal. I swallowed disappointment every time Raymond said not yet, but soon. Now, sitting here under humming fluorescent lights, I saw it all for what it was. 5 years of traded memories, burned weekends, and whispered excuses, all for a title that was never mine to claim. Look, I'm 44 years old. I've been in this business long enough to know when someone's playing games. And Raymond, he'd been playing me from day one. For the first time in years, I wondered if the man staring back from my darkened screen was someone Caleb could still be proud of. Here's the thing. Every sacrifice I'd made was for a promise that never existed. The office was empty when I left my desk that night. The kind of empty that feels heavier than noise. It was past 10:45 p.m., long after the cleaning crew had finished and the overhead lights had dimmed to their nighttime glow. My shoes clicked softly against the carpet as I walked toward the break room for a cup of stale coffee I didn't really want. That's when I heard them. Voices, low and close, spilling into the empty hallway. Raymond. I stopped just short of the glass corridor leading to his office. His door wasn't fully shut, and the acoustics in this building carried secrets too well. "He'll never cause trouble," Raymond said. His tone was casual, almost amused. "Sean's solid, reliable, but he needs the paycheck. Single dad, big bills." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Another voice followed. Deeper, older, probably Richard from corporate. "You're sure he won't push back? He's been here 5 years. Raymond laughed. A soft, dismissive sound that scraped against my nerves. "He won't. He can't afford to. At his age, where else would he go? He'll stay in line." My fists clenched. Every word was another twist of the knife. Then came the part that made my blood run cold. "He'll train Tyler better than anyone," Raymond added with confidence that made my stomach turn. "Hell, he'll make him look good doing it." That's when I knew. Raymond had no idea what he'd just done. For 5 years, I'd carried this company like it was part of my spine. I'd missed birthdays, skipped holidays, given every ounce of myself because I believed loyalty meant something. And here was Raymond reducing me to a line item on his list of predictable outcomes. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, the fluorescent hum loud in my ears, my pulse hammering. My hands were steady now, but my vision sharpened in a way that felt dangerous. "They think I'm broken," I whispered to the empty hallway. My reflection stared back at me in the glass, eyes bright and unblinking. "They're wrong." I turned and walked away without making a sound, leaving Raymond to his laughter and his lies. With every step toward my desk, the anger settled. Not as fire, but as steel. Cold, deliberate, unbending. And in that moment, I knew something Raymond didn't. Nothing in this building would ever own me again. Rain drummed against my windshield like impatient fingers as I sat in the driver's seat. The dashboard clock read 9:15 p.m. The parking lot was nearly empty, shadows stretching long under the streetlights. My hands gripped the steering wheel. My phone buzzed in the console. Caleb. I hesitated before answering, forcing the shake out of my voice. "Hey buddy, Dad, are you okay? You didn't text after your meeting." His voice was soft, concerned. The voice of a kid who'd learned to read silence like a warning sign. I stared at the droplets racing down the glass, blurring the world outside. My throat felt raw. "I'm fine," I lied. "Did you get it?" The question gutted me. I saw his face when I'd promised him things would be better soon. College tours, weekend trips we never took. All while I was missing football games to answer Raymond's midnight emails. I swallowed hard. "I'll tell you everything tomorrow, okay? Get some sleep." "Love you, Dad. Love you too." When the line went dead, I let the first tear fall. Then another. The weight of 5 years pressed down until breathing felt like work. And then, just as suddenly, I stopped crying. I opened my laptop on the passenger seat, the glow cutting through the dark. My fingers moved without hesitation, typing words that would sever everything. "Dear Raymond, this is my formal notice of resignation, effective immediately. I will honor a 2-week transition period. I read it twice. No explanations, no apologies, just an exit wound, clean and final. But as my finger hovered over the send button, something stopped me. Not fear, not second thoughts. Strategy. I closed the laptop without sending it. This letter would be delivered when I was ready, when I had leverage, when it would hurt. The next morning started like any other, except everything had changed. I walked into Ironstone at 7 a.m. sharp, nodded to security, grabbed my usual coffee from the break room. But inside I was different. The man who'd left here last night was gone. I spent the morning doing what I always did. Checking supplier schedules, reviewing contract deadlines, managing the complex dance of heavy industrial logistics that kept our clients happy. Except now I was also doing something else. I was documenting everything. Every vendor contact, every shortcut I'd developed over 5 years. Every relationship that made the impossible possible. I typed it all into a private file, creating a roadmap of processes that existed nowhere else but in my head. Not for them, for me. By lunch, I had something Raymond didn't know existed. A complete blueprint of how Ironstone's operations actually worked. Not the org chart version. The real version. The one that would take someone months to figure out on their own. That afternoon, Tyler stopped by my office. He knocked on the door frame like we were friends. "Hey, Sean, got a minute?" I looked up from my screen, keeping my expression neutral. "What's up? Just wanted to say thanks again. For everything." He stepped inside, hands in his pockets. "I know this transition might be weird, but I'm hoping we can work together. Learn from you." I studied his face. He looked sincere enough. Young, eager, completely unaware of what he'd stepped into. "Sure," I said. "Happy to help." He smiled and left, probably thinking he'd smooth things over. What he didn't know was that I'd already started making calls. The first was to Douglas Brennan at Bright Ridge Industrial Solutions. We'd worked together years ago when I was at my previous company. He'd always said if I ever wanted to make a move, to give him a call. "Sean Cole," I said when he picked up. "Remember when you told me to call if I was ever interested in exploring options?" "Of course I remember. You thinking about making a change?" "I'm thinking about it." "You free for coffee tomorrow?" "Absolutely, I'll make time." The second call was to Patricia Wells at Wolverine Steel. We'd been doing business for 3 years, and she'd always been straight with me. "Patricia, it's Sean. Quick question. If something changed on our end, who would you want to talk to about your account?" "What do you mean, something changed?" "Hypothetically. If I wasn't your primary contact anymore." There was a long pause. "Sean, you're the only reason we stay with Ironstone. You know that, right?" I did know that. I'd always known that. But hearing her say it out loud felt different now. "Good to know," I said. "I'll be in touch." By 5 p.m., I'd made 8 calls. Clients, vendors, industry contacts I'd built relationships with over nearly 2 decades. Not to burn bridges or steal accounts. Just to remind people that Sean Cole existed as more than just an Ironstone employee. I was packing up to leave when Raymond appeared at my office door. "How'd it go today?" he asked. That same manufactured friendliness from yesterday. "Fine. Tyler seems eager to learn." Good, good." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Sean, I want you to know I appreciate how you're handling this. Shows real character." I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who thought he had me figured out. Who thought my loyalty was something he could buy with threats and empty promises. "Just doing my job," I said. "That's what I like to hear." He smiled and turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Sean, make sure you document everything for Tyler. We want this transition to be seamless." After he left, I sat back in my chair and almost laughed. Document everything. If only he knew what I'd been documenting all day. That night, I printed out my resignation letter and sealed it in an envelope. Tomorrow, I'd have coffee with Douglas. Tomorrow, I'd start the next chapter. But tonight, I had dinner with my son. And for the first time in months, I didn't bring my laptop to the table. Monday morning started with my phone buzzing at 6 a.m. I'd been awake for an hour, sitting in my kitchen with coffee, when Tyler's name flashed across the screen. "Sean, thank God," he blurted before I could speak. His voice cracked like a kid who'd lost his homework. "Wolverine Steel is threatening to cancel their contract. Something about titanium brackets being delayed. They need confirmation by noon or they're pulling out." Wolverine Steel, our biggest client. A $3.2 million account I'd managed for 4 years without a single hiccup. "Slow down," I said, keeping my tone steady. "Open the supplier portal. Tell me which vendors are flagged." A pause, then, "I don't know which vendor to check. There are like 6 contracts open," and his voice dropped to a whisper. "Raymond thinks I've got this under control." Of course he did. "I'll walk you through it," I said, "but listen carefully. You'll need these steps for next time." For the next 3 hours, I became a lifeline he didn't deserve, but desperately needed. I explained backup suppliers, escalation protocols, how to reroute shipments without breaching penalty clauses. My words were precise, my tone calm, even as I typed notes into a separate file. A living map of every process, every shortcut I'd mastered in 5 years. Not for Tyler, for me. For the record. By 9:45 a.m., the crisis was contained. Wolverine got their brackets. Tyler exhaled into the phone like a man who'd just dodged a bullet. "You're incredible, Sean. I don't know how you keep this all in your head." "Experience," I almost said. "Instead, documentation helps." When I walked into the office later, Raymond was holding court near the conference room, voice booming with fake confidence. "Team, everything's under control. Just a minor hiccup with Wolverine, but Tyler handled it like a pro." His smile was wide, but his eyes betrayed him. They darted to me for half a second, sharp with suspicion, before snapping back to the room. I smiled politely, slipped past without a word, and sat at my desk to keep writing. Step-by-step guides, vendor hierarchies, troubleshooting flows. My entire playbook laid bare in black and white. Not because they asked for it, because I wanted it done on my terms. The coffee shop on 5th and Cedar was quiet when I walked in that afternoon. The kind of place that smelled like opportunity and second chances. Douglas Brennan was already there, sitting at a corner table with a tablet and that sharp smile I remembered from our supplier conferences. "Sean Cole," he said, standing to shake my hand. 5 years at Ironstone, regional operations experience without the title. That's gotta sting. I sat across from him, studying his face. "Direct, no games." "I like that. I've handled multi-million-dollar accounts across 4 states," I replied. Steady, but not pleading. "Wolverine Steel, Copperline Manufacturing, Border States Equipment. I know their systems, their pain points, and I know how to keep them happy." Douglas leaned back, weighing not just a candidate, but a strategy. Then he smiled. "We're expanding aggressively into heavy machinery distribution. That's where your connections matter." He tapped the tablet once, then looked me dead in the eye. "We want you as Regional Operations Director. Salary's 35% higher than your current base, plus performance incentives." Director. The word landed like sunlight after a storm, bright and solid after months of being treated like background noise. Douglas wasn't finished. "There's one condition. Bring your relationships. We're solid, but your network gives us an edge." It wasn't a request. It was an understanding. And it wasn't unethical. "Clients choose who they trust." I nodded. "They trust me because I deliver." "That won't change." "Perfect." His grin widened. Then he added, almost casually, "Word travels fast in this industry. I hear Raymond promoted family over competence." "That true?" The question hit like a spark in dry grass. I didn't flinch. "It's true," Douglas chuckled, shaking his head. "Clients hate instability. You leaving? That's a signal. They'll follow the steady hand. The one who knows what they're doing." For the first time in weeks, I felt something bloom in my chest that wasn't anger or exhaustion. It was possibility. As we stood and shook hands, Douglas said, "We'll draft the offer by Monday. And Sean, welcome to your next chapter." Outside, the late afternoon sun felt warm against my face for the first time in years. I didn't feel owned. I felt unstoppable. Tuesday afternoon, Raymond called me into his office. The tone in his voice wasn't a request. It was a summons. I walked in to find him standing behind his desk, shoulders rigid, sleeves rolled up like a man preparing for a fight he thought he had already won. The blinds were half closed, slicing sunlight into harsh stripes across the room. "Sit," he said. I didn't. He exhaled through his nose, then slid a sheet of paper toward me. "Interviewing with competitors while you're still on my payroll." His voice was cold, every word deliberate. "That's corporate espionage, Sean." I met his stare, hands resting lightly at my sides. "It's called exploring options." Raymond's lips curled, his voice dropping into that condescending tone I knew too well. "Options? You think Bright Ridge will save you?" "Face it, Sean." He stepped closer, words landing like blows. "Men like you hit a ceiling at 45. Tyler's the plan." The air in the room tightened. For a second, I felt rage clawing up my spine, begging to spill out in flames. But instead of shouting, I smiled. "Just barely. Is that so?" My voice was quiet, almost gentle. The kind of quiet that makes people lean in before they realize they're in trouble. Raymond smirked, mistaking restraint for weakness. "You're solid at what you do, Sean. I'll give you that. But you're done here. And if you think you can walk out with my clients, your clients?" I cut him off, voice like ice. "Those relationships exist because I built them. Not Ironstone, not you." His face darkened. "Don't play games with me. If you try to take them, I'll sue you into oblivion." That's when I leaned forward, slow and deliberate, and said the words that cracked the ground beneath him. "Show me the non-compete I signed." Silence, thick and sudden. Raymond blinked, his mouth opening and closing without sound. I watched realization wash over him. Hot, then cold, as the truth settled like a stone in his gut. I straightened, smoothing the cuff of my sleeve. Didn't think so. His mouth worked, teeth grinding, but nothing came out. I turned toward the door, heels clicking like gunshots against the concrete. Before stepping out, I looked back over my shoulder. You wanted loyalty, Raymond. You mistook it for fear. The blinds rattled as the door shut behind me. And for the first time, he understood the truth. I wasn't leaving quietly. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with Caleb, eating takeout Chinese food and talking about his day. Really talking. No laptop between us. No phone buzzing with urgent emails. Dad, he said, twirling lo mein around his fork, you seem different today. Different how? I don't know. Lighter, I guess. I looked at my son. 16 years old, growing into the kind of man I hoped he'd become. Strong but kind. Smart enough to read the room, smart enough to care. I made some decisions today, I said. Good ones. He nodded like that made perfect sense. About work? About work. About us. About what comes next. Is everything going to be okay? I reached across the table and squeezed his shoulder. Everything's going to be better than okay, buddy. I promise. Later that night, after Caleb went to bed, I opened my laptop and pulled up the resignation letter I'd written days ago. I read it one more time, then made a small change. Effective Friday. I hit send. The email whooshed into the digital ether at 11:47 p.m., carrying with it 5 years of loyalty, frustration, and misplaced trust. But it was also carrying something else, freedom. Friday came quietly. No fireworks, no confetti, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the low buzz of keyboards. My last day at Ironstone felt surreal, like watching a movie where the hero walks out of a burning building without looking back. I arrived early before most of the office and packed my things in silence. A framed photo of Caleb at his championship game. The ceramic mug he gave me for Father's Day. The leather notebook filled with years of strategies Raymond would never understand. Each item slid into the box with the weight of a closed chapter. By 8:30 a.m., the office was awake and bustling. Whispers trailed after me as I made my way through the rows of desks. People smiled too quickly, offered good luck wishes laced with curiosity and fear. They all knew what I knew. Ironstone was cracking and the sound carried. Raymond called me into his office one last time. He stood behind his desk, smile stretched so tight it looked painful. So, he said, voice strained. Last day, that's right. You're making a mistake, Sean. His eyes were glassy, hard with something between anger and desperation. You think Bright Ridge will make you a star? They'll chew you up like everyone else. I didn't answer. I just let the silence fill the room until it felt like weight pressing on his chest. Then I smiled, a small, calm curve of my lips that said everything I didn't bother to speak. Good luck, Raymond. His jaw muscles twitched as I turned and walked out without a backward glance. At my desk, I opened my laptop for the final time and typed a farewell email. Subject, transition notes. Body, team, it's been a privilege working with you. Best of luck with everything. Tyler, you're in capable hands. Sean, I hit send, watching the words fly into the digital ether like a small arrow disguised as kindness. Closing the lid felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. My badge clinked softly as I set it on the desk. The sound was final, like a gavel hitting wood. I lifted the box into my arms and walked toward the elevator. Each step felt lighter, as if gravity itself was loosening its grip. The elevator door slid shut just as my phone buzzed. A new email from Janet Morrison, procurement head at Wolverine Steel. Subject line, Ironstone transition. The first sentence made my pulse spike. If Tyler's handling our account, we're pulling out. I stared at the screen, corners of my mouth curling into something sharp. That single sentence was more explosive than anything I could have planned. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to leave the match on the table. Raymond had built his house out of paper. As I stepped into the sunlight, the weight slid off my shoulders completely. The air smelled like rain and possibility. For the first time in years, I wasn't chained to someone else's vision. I was walking into my own. And Ironstone? They were walking into chaos. 6 months later, I sat in my corner office on the 22nd floor of Bright Ridge's new regional headquarters. The city skyline stretched out before me, glass towers catching the afternoon sun like mirrors. My calendar pinged a reminder for the quarterly strategy call. I closed it. For once, there was no rush. The business magazine lay open on my desk, its cover screaming headlines in bold type. Ironstone Industries loses 65% of revenue amid management shakeup, CEO terminated. I read the first paragraph again, savoring the words like good whiskey. Raymond Kellner terminated following board investigation. Tyler Kellner resigned after 3 months, returned to graduate school at Arizona State. Multiple clients cited leadership instability as reason for contract cancellations. The article mentioned lawsuits, penalties, and a $2 million breach of contract claim from Wolverine Steel. It detailed how key accounts had followed their primary contacts to competing firms, leaving Ironstone scrambling to rebuild relationships that had taken years to establish. Here's what the article didn't mention: how Raymond had reduced experienced professionals to training materials, how he'd mistaken fear for loyalty, how he'd played games with people's livelihoods and lost. I traced the edge of the page with my fingertip, not out of spite, but out of quiet satisfaction. There was no gloating, no celebration inside me, just the calm certainty that everything had unfolded the only way it could. My phone buzzed with a text from Caleb. "Dinner tonight? Your pick, I'm buying." I smiled. 18 now, freshman at State. But he still insisted on Friday night dinners when he was home. And now, for the first time in years, I never had to answer him with maybe next time. The intercom on my desk crackled. "Sean, Douglas is here to see you. Send him in." Douglas Brennan walked through my door with the kind of smile that meant good news. "Just got off the phone with Patricia at Wolverine Steel. She's recommending us to Titan Manufacturing for their expansion project." I leaned back in my chair. "How big? 15 million? Over 3 years." The number hung in the air between us. Not just revenue, but validation. Proof that competence eventually wins over politics. "That's incredible news," I said. "It's because of you, Sean. Because of the relationships you built, the trust you earned. This is what happens when companies invest in the right people instead of playing favorites." After Douglas left, I sat quietly for a moment, looking out at the city. The afternoon sun was warm through the windows, and for the first time in years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Peace. My desk phone rang. The display showed a local number I didn't recognize. "Sean Cole. Mr. Cole, this is Tyler Kellner." I paused, then leaned forward. "Tyler, how are you doing?" I'm good. Better, actually." I wanted to call and say something I should have said months ago. His voice was different. Steadier, more mature. "What's that? I'm sorry. For how everything went down. For taking something that should have been yours. For not speaking up when I knew it was wrong." I was quiet for a moment, processing his words. "You were put in an impossible situation, Tyler. That wasn't your fault." "Maybe not, but I could have handled it better. I could have said something. You were 25 years old. I was 44. There's a difference." "Yeah, well, I'm learning that now." He paused. Are you happy where you are?" I looked out my window at the city skyline, then at the photo of Caleb on my desk, then at the magazine article about Ironstone's collapse. "Yeah," I said. "I am." "Good. That's good." Another pause. "Mr. Cole, thank you for everything you taught me, even when you had every reason not to." After we hung up, I closed the magazine and slipped it into my desk drawer. Not to forget, but because some chapters deserve to stay closed. The coffee shop on 4th and Maple was busy when I walked in that evening, filled with the Friday night crowd. I ordered my usual and found a quiet table by the window. The city moved past outside, people heading home, heading out, heading toward whatever came next. My phone buzzed. A photo from Caleb at his dorm, him and his roommates celebrating the end of midterms. His smile was wide and genuine, the kind of happiness you can't fake. I typed back, "Proud of you, kid. See you Sunday for dinner." His response came immediately. "Can't wait, Dad. Love you." I put the phone away and sipped my coffee, watching the world go by outside. Look, I'm not saying revenge is always the answer, but sometimes, when you've given everything you have to people who don't appreciate it, the best thing you can do is walk away and build something better. Sometimes the loudest statement isn't shouting or slamming doors. Sometimes it's silence and success. I walked away from people who underestimated me and built something stronger on my own terms. Your value isn't defined by someone else's ceiling. It's defined by what you choose to do when they think you're trapped. I learned that at 44 in a conference room where I thought my career was ending. Turns out it was just beginning. The drive home was peaceful. Traffic moved smoothly, and for the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about work. I was thinking about Caleb's upcoming visit, about the fishing trip we'd planned for next month, about all the time we'd have together, now that I worked for people who understood that life happens outside of office buildings. Sometimes the quietest moves speak the loudest. Success doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. And sometimes when you're ready to listen, that whisper sounds exactly like coming home.